One is we want to go back to the out-of-district formula funds, just to make sure that we were a bit rushed at the end of the last meeting, and to make sure that this committee is ready to move those forward, and also to pass a prioritization list for the out-of-district funds, because we've spent so much time on the out-of-district formula funds. I'm hoping that we can wrap that up in 15 minutes, no more than 15 minutes. The main focus of the meeting will be on the state transportation network and the discretionary fund projects. And we will hear from the agencies that are proposing each of those projects. I will ask that we hold our questions until we get through all the presenters. So jot your question down if you have a question that pops up while someone is doing one of the presentations, and we will go back after all the presentations are finished and ask questions. It is our hope that we will be able to come to a conclusion on what we're going to recommend for those two funding areas by the end of this meeting, and that we will arrive at a priority list for whatever we decide to fund. So that's the primary goal. Those are the goals we're trying to accomplish in this meeting. And has any committee member joined us just in the last few minutes? I'm seeing some initials, but I don't see names. Who is that? I'm sorry.
Susie joined.
Thank you, Susie. So I think we'll go to audience participation. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a public comment today to the committee? Okay, we can go right to the agenda then. There we go. This is what we're trying to do in terms of the out-of-district formula funds. We've gone through those projects, and what we need to do is to make sure that we're solid as a committee in forwarding those recommendations to the LTD board and the prioritization of them. So, Kate, you want to move to the next slide?
I just want to provide a quick reminder of each of the projects that are in the out-of-district funds that you all did discuss, and you had the provider speak about them a few meetings ago and then discuss them last meeting again. And so just wanted to remind everyone, here's what the project list is. It's the same as it was last time. The providers are here if there are questions for them, but I think most of the questions were answered last time, but I just kind of wanted to make sure that there were no more questions.
Any questions? Rachel, please note that Josh Herring just joined us. I'm not surprised there are no questions. We've really gone through these fairly carefully in past meetings. Do you want to move us to the next slide, Kate?
Yes, so, and then just a reminder about the budgets that we are just about what ODOT and LTD have estimated we will be for this biennium. I really quickly wanted to, based on the conversation that you all had last time, LTD did make a proposal for what, this is very similar to what you did for the in-district prioritization. So LTD wanted to follow that lead of what you had suggested for the in-district, to go ahead and suggest this for the out-of-district, where the LCOG and the Cottage Grove projects would be funded as first priority. And then if for some reason there wasn't enough funding, LTD would be the one to figure out which of their projects they would scale to make sure that they were within budget. The other thing that LTD did request, which I think is a good suggestion, is that right now we are assuming that we are slightly over budget for the in-district and just right at budget for the out-of-district. So LTD has asked that if the committee would consider allowing a little flexibility for the in-district and out of funds, specifically for the Diamond Express bus, expansion bus, because it does fund in and out of district. So if there does happen to be a little more overage and out of district than expected, that overage could be used for the Diamond Express bus. So that would be a suggestion that they have offered if the committee does feel comfortable with the suggestion.
So these priorities are based on the criteria that we used to set priorities at the last meeting. As Kate mentioned, LTD is essentially volunteered to be the expansion joint in this round, so that if we need to cut something in order to make sure that our first priorities get funded, LTD will find a way to take that out of some of their projects. Is the next slide the proposed motion, Kate? So this is a proposed motion based upon what we've talked about. I'll give you a second to read it. Is anybody ready to make a motion?
Barnhart moves the motion as printed.
I'll second.
Is that David Reeser on the second?
Yes.
Okay, motion made by Phil Barnhart, seconded by David Reeser. Now we will go to discussion one more time, one last time, I hope, just to see if anybody has any comments. Ruth, I see your microphone on. Okay, all right. Anybody else? Okay, Rachel, do you want to go ahead and do the roll call vote?
Yes. So I have Phil Barnhart,
Aye.
Amy Cubbage,
Aye.
David Deviney,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Josh Herring. I
Aye.
think I saw you wave.
That was an aye.
Josh Kaczynski,
Aye.
Susie Lacer. Aye. Ruth Linos,
Aye.
thank you. David Reeser.
Aye.
Okay, and I did not have Sherry Moore, Eugene Oregon. And the rest are non-voting. So unless I missed if they are here.
Nope. Is Philip here? Philip Shemu?
Oh, thank you, and Philip Shinu.
Okay.
I think that's everybody.
Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, group, and thank you for your culminating of several rounds of discussion on these projects. Let's go ahead and go to the main focus of the meeting, and that is we have not yet looked at this STIF statewide and discretionary projects, and so this will be the time when we'll ask. Go ahead, Kate, walk us through this, and then we'll the presenters to go one at a time. We're going to put a time limit on the presenters so that there will be plenty of time at the end of all the presenters for the committee members to ask questions. Go ahead, Kate.
Thanks, Mike. I just wanted to give a couple of slides to kind of remind everyone about to shift focus. So we've been working with formula funds where the majority of those, so 90% of STIF funds are formula funds, and they get divided up into for each qualified entity. And now we're going to really shift focus to look at the two statewide discretionary funds. They're the STIF discretionary fund and then the statewide transit network, which is made up of two different funds, which is the STIF Intercommunity Fund and the FDA 5311F funds. And I think it's important to note the difference in this because this is a statewide competitive grant. So applicants are filling out one application for each of these So applicants filled out one application and they could choose if they wanted to apply just for one of these funds or if they wanted to apply for all three of these, or one, two, or three of these funds. So ODOT staff have reviewed all of the applications for completeness, and then they sent them back to you all at the SIF Advisory Committee to ask you all to weigh in on these projects. So they are also asking the Lane Area Commission on Transportation to weigh in on the same projects that you're weighing in on, but then across the state, essentially, they're asking the SIF Advisory Committees and the ACTs to weigh in on local projects that are local for them. And then once you give your feedback, and so for you all, what the feedback is you're asked primarily to prioritize the projects. And then if you want, you can say fund or don't fund the projects, but you can prioritize them. And they'll take that selection committee will take those recommendations back as they think statewide about how to mix and match all the different funding to fund as many different projects as possible with these dollars. So I think it's just important to keep that in mind. People, you saw in your packet that they could apply for each of these funds. They each have a different match rate. And so it's important to be thinking about that. But really, the ODOT selection committee will be thinking about that as they pair all the funding together for each project. Just where we are in the timeline, these applications were submitted at the beginning of November, and then your recommendations that the LTD board, you'll send those to the LTD board, and then they'll send them on to ODOT by the end of this month, so January 31st, and then they'll get reviewed and notices will go out this spring.
Can I make a point of clarification, Kate?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, Mike, you're the chair. It's okay to make a point of clarification.
Yeah, fine.
So this body, the STIF Advisory Committee, is making a recommendation kind of outside of his scope a little bit. So I think Kate mentioned, we're here competing against the entire state. So you don't get to see all the state applications from the entire state. So it really you don't have a point of basis as to what you're looking at these applications as to make sure that those applicants, the transportation service providers, which LTD is one of them as well, that they're in line with the local goals here. Definitely, I want to point out that the decision makers is ODOT. It is not the LTD board. And we would be advising our LTD board to support all projects in Lane County, provided, of course, they don't fall outside our local county goals of good public transportation. So I just want to make sure as you go through all of them, that it's important that we do support the projects because we're competing against the entire state. So we don't want to put ourselves in a position that's not advantageous, bringing competitive dollars to our county. So I think we have a good plan. We have great applicants. So I just want to make sure that it's not within the LTD board of directors that you're advising, because the LTD board provides no advice to ODOT on this topic.
So AJ, in order to make sure that the SIF Advisory Committee addresses what you just raised, there are two strategies that I suggest. One is that we ensure that each project actually meets the criteria that's set for that category. And secondly, we are required to prioritize the projects. So even though we may not, and that in and of itself probably means that we won't have all number one projects. In fact, in order to be of help to ODOT, I'm inclined to say we should lump projects into three categories: high, medium, and low, so that at least ODOT has some sense of where the STIF Advisory Committee stands on each of the projects. Does that approach sound okay to you, AJ?
Yes and no. The only concern I would have, if we're comparing our projects and we're setting something at a low priority, and it's competing at with another project throughout the state, ODOT would prioritize our project very low. In the formula dollars, this body, all of you are direct advisors to the LTD Board of Directors. And the LTD Board of Directors are the ones that send it to ODOT. And that is the order that ODOT follows. So it's very straightforward. When it comes to the discretionary dollars, us prioritizing here projects low could actually hurt our county. So I want to make sure that you know we're not competing within the county, we're competing with the entire state. So I would recommend that I think you should look at them to make sure they meet the criteria that's established here. But if they all meet the criteria, that you all give them a very high qualification so that ODOT knows that these projects are very important. The STIF Advisory Committee is not required to prioritize the discretionary ones, I believe, Kate, correct?
Yeah, the requirement is that you say that if you, here, I'll read the requirement just to make sure I say it correctly.
Because my understanding is the advisory committee only reports to the QE. The advisory committee here does not report to ODOT.
So the qualified entities with the advisory committee guidance review and recommend whether each project should be awarded funding. Qualified entities may recommend a prioritized list of projects for their geographic area of responsibility.
So you can recommend if you choose to do that, but I just want to make sure that we position our county to receive the maximum amount of dollars.
This is Phil. Who is the qualified entity?
Lane Transit District is the qualified entity for all of Lane County.
Great, thank you.
But in this discretionary category, Phil, we're competing with qualified entities throughout the state.
I understand all of that. The thing I did not understand was what the term qualified entity referred to, and she just answered that.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. If I could comment, this is a kind of a strange process, because if we are parochial and highly recommend all of the projects that we're connected to, or that the board's connected to, it's not particularly useful at the next level. On the other hand, and I agree with what was said, if we actually prioritize projects, then we basically cut out the ones at the lower that have a lower priority for us, because other people aren't going to do that. I think the only thing we can do that makes any sense at all is simply make certain that these projects meet the criteria, and then send them on to the board with our glowing, fullest, and most effusive recommendations for all of them.
Well, I'm going to suggest that this conversation was helpful as context for us. And then when it comes down to after we've heard from all the presenters, then we will decide whether we can recommend all of them as having met the criteria, and we may or may not take action on prioritization. So, Kate, are we ready to roll out the presenters?
Yep, just really quickly, I want to just one more time remind everyone that for the discretionary fund, these are more of your kind of one-off projects, pilot projects that wouldn't be funded another time through these programs. Then for the intercommunity fund, these are pilot and ongoing operations, as well as capital projects really focused on the longer distance travel between public transportation service providers. And then those intercommunity funds fit really nicely with the Section 5311F funds. Those you have to have a route that's going more than 20 miles, and it really is a long distance community to community travel. So just also keeping in mind the three different funds are very similar, but have slight differences. They have slight different matches. I know that we've talked about this a number of times. We talked about it a number of times last cycle too, but I just wanted to remind everyone of that as we go into having the providers talk. So again, here are the two outlines of what you can do as a committee And then Mike, if you want to go, I think we're going to go ahead and start having the presenters talk now. Is that correct? And you said to hold questions until the end.
That's the plan.
Great.
So do we want to do these in the order that's on the PowerPoint?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I think
So
we're
Highway
back.
99
Back
corridor,
here.
who is for Benton County?
Hi there, everyone. My name's Brad Dillingham. I'm the transit coordinator for Benton Area Transit, who is the PTSP for this project. Should I go ahead and begin? Am I ready?
Yes,
All right.
we're trying to hold these to 3 minutes, so.
All right, sounds good. I'll try to be as quick as I can. In the last STIF cycle, our local council of governments, Oregon Cascades West, they applied for a discretionary program to basically do a study of the 99W corridor. And the results of that study indicated with all of the partners, including Lane Transit District, Chariots, Corvallis Transit, ourselves, Benton Area Transit, all this feeling that this corridor is feasible for transit. Now, yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but luckily the actual operations of this project will not begin until July of 2022, as the first year will require us to, to build stops, to acquire buses, and to really just plan out and market everything. But, this is definitely one of those projects. We're serving a north and south corridor in a large swath of Oregon, which is primarily rural. So this is definitely in the category of an accessible service. It's not going to be as productive. Now, these are assumptions that I'm making, based on my knowledge and what I've read from the study and everything. But it's not going to be productive like you see in an urban transit, but it's going to provide, an accessible service for a lot of smaller towns in the Willamette Valley, coming from Junction City to Monroe, Oregon, to Corvallis, to Lewisburg, Adair Village, Monmouth, up to Rick Riel, where, and that connects 5 transit districts, I believe, or agencies. And so this is definitely a service that's going to allow folks who really don't have other ways to get around. It's going to provide them an accessible service. The service is going to be, it's a partnership between us and Yamhill County. And between the two of us, there will be 4 runs a day. So both of us will be providing 2 runs. And just as a reference, Benton Area Transit, we do a similar kind of operation with our partners in Lincoln County with our Coast Valley Express service, where we have, we're going one way, they're going the other way, and we complement each other. So this kind of thing, it's been done before. But yeah, this is it, and at the same time, it's a pilot service. So the funding options that were explained, I believe that it's applicable to all 3 categories, because it's it's the maiden voyage, and it's a pilot service, so we'll see if it if it's sustainable in terms of how productive it is. But yeah, does anybody have any questions?
We may come back for questions, so please hang around.
Sorry.
Now, could we get the Yamhill County side of this proposal? Or were you covering both?
I believe if Cynthia's not here, I'm covering both. But yeah, I mean, we're partnering on this one. So.
All right. Okay, let's go to the next one, the next slide then, Kate. Okay, this is the Coos Bay to Florence connection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is David Hope. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I guess I want to start out by saying that much like you just heard from Benton County, we're a small system as well, and providing north-south service from Curry County, all the way from the California line through Curry County, through Coos County, up into Florence and beyond, to air transportation, train, all kinds of trips, medical and employment trips for people traveling along that corridor. And again, like Benton County, this is not a service that is going to have a high productivity rate. That being people per hour going to be very low, especially now due to COVID. We're at about 1/3 of where it would be normally in the passenger per hour category. That will improve greatly once COVID is finally left us alone and we're back to normal. As you know, right now, people in transit we have seats roped off on all the buses. People can't travel if they wanted to, and they don't want to anyway. So that will improve a lot once that's over, once we get through COVID. Funds from this grant, if approved, will continue that service for the 21-23 time period. And that'll be our only funding source for that service. And without that, we wouldn't have that. There'd be a missing link once again in Coos County between California, Curry, nothing in Coos going to Florence and beyond. That's why it's a valuable service. And our trip cost will come down to about 1/3 what it is now once COVID is over. So I'd like to be just to recommend the service as something really valuable, both to people in Coos County, Curry County, and beyond. And again, echo what Benton County said as far as being a tough time to be in transit regarding productivity wise. Glad to be here, but waiting for COVID to be over.
Okay, thank you, David. Our next one is Enhanced Lane Douglas Connector Service. City of Cottage Grove. Is that you, Ruth?
So I'll be speaking on behalf of the City of Cottage Grove. The Lane Douglas Connector Service started today. That was funded by the Rural Veteran Healthcare Transportation Grant. And so as that is a pilot project that's scheduled to end this year, it's connecting North Douglas and the South Lane County areas to veteran destinations, but it's open to the public. And that funding may not be reallocated. So this grant, the City of Cottage Grove wanted to make sure that this pilot project could expand into more days of the week, 5 days, instead of the initial 2 that we're operating now. It also is targeting the veteran population that's about 10% in the North Douglas County, and that's pretty significant. Plus, the North Douglas Betterment Service is a volunteer service primarily because the income level of most of the residents in North Douglas County is very low income. And so this is a critical connection to their communities and to resources within Lane and Douglas County and Roseburg, Cottage Grove, and Eugene. So we wanted to make sure that this viable lifeline service could become more meaningful, and that needed some funding that was more reliable than maybe this dedicated veteran healthcare grant. So that's what the proposal is. Plus there's an ask for purchasing a vehicle large enough to transport more than 5 people given the COVID restrictions. Again, hoping the ridership will grow as service is made meaningful through the rural communities. What's significant about this project is it checks off 7 of the 10 Oregon Public Transportation Plan goals, plus it directly addresses 5 of the 7 STIF funding allocations requirements. So if there's a project that really fits this funding, this is it, and hoping you'll support it.
Thank you, Ruth. Okay, our next one is enhanced Florence intercommunity route.
Hi there.
Go ahead, is that Kelly?
Yeah, Kelly Clark here with the Lane Council of Governments. And I've had the opportunity to present these projects to you for the formula funds that we've applied for, and certainly appreciate your support and recommendation to provide formula funds for these routes. These two applications are for the larger portion of our route funding, and it was approved during the last STIF biennium, and we were able to continue the pilot operation for the Florence Yachats connector with those funds, and then begin the Florence Eugene connector with the STIF funds. And so we're here with these two applications to continue or to ask for funding to continue those two routes through the next STIF biennium.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, does that include the project 6 as well? Did
Yes.
you want to add anything for that?
That project 6 is the Florence to Yachats connector, and I kind of lumped both in with my
All right,
discussion.
okay.
Thank you.
And they're both matching funds with the formula funds, it sounds like.
Yes, sorry if I wasn't clear about that. Yes, the discretionary funds that we're asking for here are the bigger portion of our funds, and then the formula funds that we've requested are to the match for these discretionary funds.
Thanks. So project 7, electric bus replacement project.
Yeah, this is Matt Imlach. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, hear you well.
All right. Well, hey, this is, we're seeking discretionary funds for about $3.4 million to provide match for what we've already secured in federal dollars of about $9 million. I do want to note that actually last year, LTD was awarded just about $4 million from FTA for the bus and bus facility. That was a competitive grant that we were awarded for the continued electrification of our fleet. So these buses, we're seeking upwards of 11, are to help provide local match to those grants that we have already received and been awarded. So this is upwards of 11. As noted, that 3.4 million is what we're hoping for to move forward. I will note that these are different vehicles that have been identified from the STIF formula funds that we've talked about previously. So these are additional vehicles that we're seeking for electrification. So these are 11 electric buses that we're hoping to continue to meet our board's goal and the community's goal, really, for seeing zero emission buses on the road.
Thank you, Matt. Are you the spokesperson for project 8?
I am not. I will pass that along to my colleague.
All right.
Hi, this is Robin Mayall. Can you hear me? Hi. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you about the Trip Planner Mobility Wallet project. I have spoken about this when we discussed the STIF formula fund. And this project is to fund the creation of a mobile application that would enable customers in our area to plan a trip using a variety of transportation modes, including transit, also including City of Eugene parking, bike share, any future scooter shares, mobility on demand options like MGO, Cottage Grove connector, walking, et cetera. So it would be an integrated ability to plan integrated trips across our region. And this mobile app would also include the ability for users to pay for the trip using a mobile wallet, which would let them have a one-stop shop for payment instead of using several applications to plan and pay for their trip.
Is that it, Robin? Okay, we may have
yes,
questions.
and we have applied.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying we have also applied for a federal grant for this project as well.
Great, okay. Okay, our next project is Oak Ridge Transportation Services. John, is that you?
Thank you. Hello, members of the SIF committee and everyone present here today. I'm here to discuss LTD's application for funding of the Diamond Express service, which is a core intercommunity service, which has been in operation for many years to connect the Oak Ridge community with the greater metropolitan area. Diamond Express is a 40-foot bus that travels between Oak Ridge and Eugene 3 times a day, every weekday. The service takes into account that Oak Ridge has a high proportion of older adults and lower income residents, likely a long-time impact with the lumber mill closing over 20 years ago. To that end, we've made the service very reasonable with fare at $2.50 and a round-trip pass, also receiving a complimentary day pass on LTD's fixed route system. We partner with and receive modest financial support from the city of Oak Ridge and try to ensure that the service is as financially accessible as we can. However, the service requires grant funds to continue operations. The Diamond Express has also been a means to help revitalize the community as new businesses are growing and encouraging tourism. We've installed bicycle racks on our vehicle and entered into cooperative agreements with Amtrak to encourage travel to Oak Ridge as a world-class mountain biking destination. We know how important transportation is to local residents and how isolating it becomes when transportation is not available. And there are few other options. The city of Oak Ridge made national news less than a year ago when 183 Amtrak passengers were stranded in the snow with little to eat. Community members rely on the Diamond Express to access opportunities for education, for work, to receive health care, and to connect with other local transportation options. During a normal month, we can provide 1,000 rides, hour-long rides, to community members in need. As it's been demonstrated to be of tremendous value and the community has become to depend on it over the many years it has operated, my hope is that you'll choose to continue to strongly recommend funding for the service. We've requested that STIF intercommunity funds specifically be prioritized for this project, as it allows us to more flexibly serve the community with this route. We've made requests to ODOT for guidance on improvements to the route, such as being able to better serve communities in between Oak Ridge and Eugene, or more efficiently complementing our fixed route service. Due to the more restrictive nature of 5311F funds, we were advised to pursue other funds such as STIF intercommunity that would better meet these needs, which we have reflected in our application. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, John. So Kate, is that all the presenters that we have? Okay. So this is the time for people to ask questions. And I'll just notice if you unmute your microphone, that'll be my cue to call on you. So Kate, you and I were talking about this earlier today, and we commented on the fact that I think you said all but 2 of these projects are being matched through other STIF funds. Is that correct?
I think that's, I'm trying to, well, through, I think we were talking about it in which of the projects that people are seeing are being matched through our STIF fund, through the STIF funds in Lane County, the formula funds in Lane County. But I do believe most of these projects are being matched with formula funds, either from Lane County or another project.
Yeah.
With the exception of just a few of them. So.
David Davini, I see your microphone's on.
Yes, Mike, thank you. I just had a question. It was very clear to me in all projects except 1 and 2 that Lane County was benefiting in terms of transportation dollars. I wasn't quite clear as to how projects on 1 and 2 were benefiting, Lane County residents, so to speak.
So that's Brad and I can't remember. Was it David? Brad and David? No, it's just Brad. I think we're representing both of those.
Yeah. So part of the 99W corridor pilot service would be that we would be connecting to Junction City, which is in Lane County. So I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is it the 95 that connects to Junction City for Lane Transit District? So it would help, anybody who maybe is going to Eugene, up the corridor. So aside from Amtrak, there's not really a lot of connections along I-5. So yeah, that's how it would benefit.
Does that get at it, David? Okay. Other questions? Who is that? Phil Barnhart?
Yeah, really not a question. It's more of a comment. When I reviewed these projects, it seemed clear to me that what they were really doing was filling in some of the web of transportation infrastructure that we need in order to move people around in the state of Oregon. And of course, the ones that we're looking at happen to touch either into or on the edges of Lane County. I'm very supportive of all of them.
So I don't see any other comments. Kate, did you prepare a motion for this section? I'm not seeing it. There we go.
I did. I actually have, just based on what AJ had said, one of the things that I had done is I had a spreadsheet that I was going to pull up for you all to look at.
Right.
When you and I had talked earlier, we had talked potentially about different ways that the committee could talk about it.
Yeah.
You all can, as I said, you do need to do the fund or no fund for each project, so that, and then you can prioritize if you would like, and you could also submit comments as a committee. That you do have the option to do that as well. So I have a spreadsheet of all of the projects if the committee is interested in doing that, where I can type in comments that I've heard about. Like I've heard from Phil now that he's supportive of all of them. I can say something similar for each of the projects, but if the committee is all in line with that. So as you all are having your discussion, I'll kind of can type into that and see if, as I'm hearing comments, and then get the committee to agree if they all agree with those comments.
In terms of mechanics, I'd like to suggest that we work with this motion first, and then after the motion, we have conversation about if we want to prioritize how we would like to do that, or whether we'd like to make a broad statement similar to the statement that Phil Barnhart just made about these projects sort of uniformly filling in gaps that need to be covered in our part of the state. But I'd like to suggest that we go to the motion first, if that's okay, if someone wants to make a motion.
This is Ruth. I move to recommend to the LTD Board of Directors the prioritized STN and discretionary project lists with comments on whether each project should be funded.
Second, Phil Barnhart.
Okay, motion was made by Ruth Linos and seconded by Phil Barnhart. And so now we have opportunity for discussion. Okay, well, the motion actually assumes that we are going to prioritize in some way and comment in some way. Other discussion?
The comment I would like to make.
Go ahead, Ruth.
I would like to follow up on that assessment of all the projects. Really, because of the impacts of COVID and economies and a lot of question on which communities and which entities are going to be able to thrive after we start back up. I think the best thing we can do with what tax dollars have been put into this funding source is to give it as much opportunity to be to resource these different projects, because we can't guarantee the ridership responses to the services, and if they're not there and not supported, then nothing's going to give hope for these different needs in these communities and for that network that we've worked so hard to create in our county and in our state. So I support AJ's suggestion of we just let these projects have our support and give them a chance at the state level to get some funding.
So that almost sounds like a proposed amendment. I'll hold off on calling it that for the time being. Josh, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify based on things that were said at the top of this discussion. Are we recommending to the LT Board of Directors or are we recommending to ODOT for these projects?
My understanding is we're recommending these to ODOT. Is that correct, Kate?
It's actually changed ever so slightly from 2 years ago when this happened. So 2 years ago, the rules were that ODOT sent it directly to the SIF Advisory Committee and you could send your recommendations directly back to ODOT. This time it does the rules. I think the way I said it is that it's the qualified entity in coordination with the SIF Advisory Committee. So technically you would be giving this to LTD board who would submit it on behalf of you all. So
that part of the motion is accurate in terms of what we're being asked to do. AJ,
Thank you for that
go ahead,
clarification.
And
Thank you
know,
for clarifying.
We would be at the staff level, we would be also encouraging our board of directors that if our projects meet the criteria, to strongly recommend them. One of the challenges that we face, and ODOT did change the rules on us, one of the challenges that we face is because we don't know all the other projects, right? We don't know them. And what we do know, you know, and Ruth and a few other people may know this, the LTD projects, which is opposite than the formula, right? The formula, we said, prioritize the smaller agencies and LTD will absorb the difference. That's for the formula that you just approved or developed a recommendation. The opposite is true for the discretionary ones. LTD is the second largest transit agency in the state. They're gonna have to give us a nice chunk if we meet the criteria. Just by our design, we transport the highest amount. So LTD here is the most competitive. We have the best chance to compete. TriMet is probably the only other one that can compete at our level to get the big dollars. And LTD is the second one, and so forth. So here, unfortunately, the opposite would be true. We would prioritize LTD's projects and then kind of sprinkle in some of the smaller, which kind of appears a little bit unfair, right? Especially Ruth saying, well, LTD, you get the lion's share and we're gonna, so it's kind of hard for us to say, well, Ruth, we know we can bring in more money than you, so let's give us, so that's where it creates kind of the conflict here that we know the most competitive projects are gonna be LTD's electric buses, bringing in the big vehicles, because that's really important to moving mass transit and meeting a lot of the goals. So what we want to do is we want to support our county's rural transportation and the importance of connecting. So I think my recommendation would be that you know, this committee can prioritize in any order, but that definitely some language stating the importance of all of Lake County's projects and the importance of kind of that rural connection and the smaller agencies along with the big transit. So it's kind of a difficult process, but the rules were changed and we don't know what everybody else is applying to. So you're doing it blindly in some ways, where ODOT has the privilege of looking at the entire state, you know, and they're comparing rural to rural. They're able to really do that, where it's hard for us to do that, not knowing all the other projects. So, you know, and we'll work with ODOT for future years to try to make this project simpler. And I will tell you that Lane Act also had a lot of a difficulty with this. And that's why I wanted to make sure I pointed that out in the beginning, to say I'm not really competing against LTD is not competing against South Lane Wheels. We want both of the projects to get funded for good transportation in Lane County. So hopefully that helps. I know it's confusing and it's messy, and Steph and I talked about the messiness of this, but I really wanted you to have that big picture and allow your input to be heard by the LTD Board of Directors. And we at the staff level will also try to do our best to represent the importance of good transportation, both in the metro and the rural area for Lane County, and be as competitive as we can against other statewide projects that we don't know. I mean, maybe they're more worthy than ours. We don't know because we can't see them.
Thanks, AJ. Carl has a comment.
Hey, Mike, thank you very much. Sorry, I'm in a loud place, and I just wanted to say that I can definitely, as one of the members of the LCD board and the qualifying entity, I'd be happy to pass on what the advisory board recommends as something that already been carefully considered and something that we could pass on without too much modification, without any modification, without possibly giving really good reason. I just want to make sure everyone knew that that was aware of it.
Thank you, Carl. So based on the conversation that we've had, I'm wondering if a more appropriately worded motion might be, I move to recommend the STN and discretionary projects list to the LTD Board of Directors, and just period.
I agree. This is Phil Barnhart. That makes a lot more sense given what we're in the process of doing.
So we have a motion on the table. Go ahead, David.
I was wondering if we could strongly recommend to the LTD board that they approve and fund each project.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the table. We can.
Well, if it helps, I withdraw my second to that motion in preparation of supporting the one that you suggest.
Yeah.
You okay with that, Ruth?
I'm totally okay with that.
Okay, so I move to, well, I'm just gonna put the language out there. I'm not gonna make the motion. But the language being that seems that we're coalescing around is, I move to strongly recommend the STN and discretionary projects list to the LTD Board of Directors, period.
So moved.
Is that David Reeser?
Yeah.
Rachel, did you get that language? Okay. David Reeser made the motion. David Deviney, is that you?
Yes.
David Deviney seconds. Okay, further discussion. Okay, Rachel, do you want to take roll?
Sure. Phil Barnhart,
Aye.
okay. Amy Cubbage,
Aye.
David Deviney,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Josh Herring,
Aye.
Josh Kozinski,
Aye.
Susie Lacer,
Aye.
Ruth Linos,
Aye.
and David Reeser.
Aye.
Thank you. So I'll leave it to the committee as to whether or not anybody wants to make another motion. Whether we make another motion or not, that I guess I'd like for the record to reflect that during our discussion, we placed a high priority on these projects because they seem to be congruent with the goal of filling in transportation gaps in our region and in the state. And that we feel that that's very much in line with the objective of STIF. Is there other, did I capture that about right, or is there other language that should be included? Phil Barnhart, anything to say? Go ahead, Ruth, then we'll come back to Phil.
You're gonna repeat the question, because I didn't get it.
Okay, we're gonna let Ruth.
Go ahead and repeat.
Basically that for the record, that we state that the sense of this board is that the STN and discretionary projects that we've listed are very congruent with the STIF objectives to fill in transportation gaps in our region and in the state. Comments, Ruth or Phil?
Yeah. The suggestion I was going to make for the next process is it would be very helpful for the committee if we saw a listing of where those tax dollars are coming from within the county, so that we could see how well we're returning to those citizens who transit services in enough proportion to what's being put into the STIF, into the transit tax, so that we can legitimately say that we're developing transit resources in proportion. Because right now we're guessing.
Yeah.
And the community's not really able to see the answer to what's my money doing for me.
Well, I'd like to come back to that one, but Phil, do you want to make a comment?
I'm sorry, I'm still confused about what the specific topic is.
The topic is to try to make a summary statement representing the feelings of this board based on our discussion.
I mean, I guess my thought would be that it's a value to complete the web of transit available across the state, and certainly in our area, and that these proposals connect into Lane County or to services that are in Lane County, and increase the availability of transit services for people who reside in Lane County and around the state. I mean, I think that's a sort of a paraphrase of what I said earlier, but I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing that makes sense to me about doing this kind of thing. And then when it's time, I have a comment to make about the previous comment about where the money comes from.
Yeah, we'll come back to that in a minute. Phil's statement was very congruent with what I'd stated, and I think that I don't know that we need to get it down word for word, but my sense is that represents the sense of this board, and that we'd like to pass that along with our motions that we have passed during the process. Go ahead, Kate.
Okay, I just want to make sure really quick. I think that this is I think Rachel and I can go back and look at the transcript here and make sure that we get word for word what the statement is. I think you can leave comments about every single project. So what I'm hearing now from the committee, and I just want to confirm, is that this statement that you just wordsmithed a little, Mike, is what we would put for every single project that's on the projects that you all would comment on. And that you strongly you think that these are very important projects that provide a lot of connectivity in and out of Lane County, and that you strongly, I just want to make sure that the committee is in agreement that each project will have its own comment from the committee, but it will be the same comment from the committee. Is that correct?
So we have been asked to comment on each project, and from what Kate has heard from us, that would result in the same comment being applied to every project. Are folks generally okay with that? Anybody have an issue with it? Josh, go ahead.
I would just note that the electric vehicle project and there was the technology one for the mobility wallet are both very good projects, but for perhaps different reasons than what we just expressed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, are we? I thought we were talking about these these non-district projects, are we back on the district projects too?
We're talking about the state transportation network and the discretionary projects.
Okay, but none of them refer to electric, do they?
Yeah, there was one electric project for LTD in the, was it STN or discretion, I think it was.
Oh, okay, all right. I guess I was confused about what part we were talking about. Yeah, that's right. The explanation that we're talking about doesn't really apply to that one. That one has to do with modernization and being able to continue to use the transit system after it becomes even more eminently obvious than it is now that adding carbon to the air is enormously destructive. I wouldn't recommend that as the statement, but that's the gist of it from my point of view, at least.
Amy, you had a comment?
Yeah, it was exactly along those lines. I think we're all in agreement with, you know, mostly around supporting the statement about these projects. So, you know, a lot of these projects supporting connectivity kind of statewide, and that's one of the STIF goals. But then we have the LTD projects that are a little bit different. So maybe we could expand that statement. And we strongly support all of these projects for these reasons. To just include the electric buses, the trip planner, mobility wallet, those two.
Will that get it, Kate? Okay.
Yes, so I think we'll say for all the other projects, because it supports connectivity in our region, and for those two, we would say because of modernization. That's the word I heard from Phil Barnhart.
Good.
There's other words that you want me to put into that, I can't, but.
I think we're good, unless somebody wants to wave at me. Phil, you wanted to comment on Ruth's suggestion?
Yes, thank you. I don't see any problem at all with getting information about where the dollars come from. But I can tell you already, generally speaking, that when we're talking about the payroll tax, which I think is what funds this the STIF, where the STIF money comes from, if I'm remembering correctly, that most of those funds are going to come from the places where jobs are concentrated. And that means Portland, Washington County, Clackamas County, Bend, Eugene and Springfield, and then to a lesser extent, the other municipalities in the South. And yet most of these dollars that we're talking about, at least in the ones having to do with the connectivity, is to connect us in the much more rural areas where there are, frankly, a lot fewer jobs. I mean, getting the information is fine, but I don't think it's going to demonstrate what you are hoping it's going to demonstrate. I think what it'll demonstrate is that the municipalities, the cities, the urban areas are supporting transit for around the state, just like they do for the schools with the income tax. It really is basically the same kind of thing. And that's based on my 12 years as chair of the Revenue Committee in the House. I could be wrong, but I doubt it.
So I'd like to tag on to Phil's comment. Like Phil, I don't have a problem with us getting the data. I don't think we would want to do anything close to suggesting that the money should be allocated proportionally, or that the project should be allocated proportionally. Otherwise, our rural areas will end up without any service. That seems like the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Ruth.
That's not quite what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
I'm just suggesting that in the awareness of, there are some large employers that are positioned outside of what you and I might think of as metro city limits, or even central areas. And so it's just being conscious that most people who are paying those tax payroll payments, they're always asking the question, what is this money doing for
I
me? And I think just being aware that there is possibly those satellite locations that aren't captured within those bigger cities, that we're aware. And if there's the opportunity to I work with a project that says your money is going back into your community or going back into your area, I think that's just being responsible. And if we have an option to make a decision, knowing that, that's all I'm suggesting.
Thanks for that clarification, Ruth. I think we're getting close to being able to wrap up our work for this funding cycle. Kate, is there anything else that we need to do that you can think of? Well, I'd like to thank the group once again. We've given a good, robust, and rigorous analysis of these projects, thought them over, discussed them carefully, and I think we've worked hard to try to stick with the criteria that have been laid out for us to guide us. And so I hope to see us all again in 2 years, and hope that COVID is long behind us by that time. Thanks, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Yeah.